All right, and we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Lisette, and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today on the line, all the way from Oslo, Norway, I have Fredrik Thomassen. And Fredrik, you are the CEO and founder of Superside, which is a fully remote creative service company, which does not do it justice, but we'll dive into that in a second. And and you are out to prove that the future of work is about solid jobs that are flexible, remote, and happy. So we're going to dive into that as well. But let's start with the opening question, which is, what does your virtual office look like, and what do you need to get your work done?
Yeah, I mean, I work from home here in Oslo in an office in the house. I don't need much, to be honest. I need a cup of coffee and some slices of bread for breakfast, or some oatmeal porridge, and then it's off to the races. My job, like most people's careers, I guess, start out pretty exciting, and you do interesting analytical stuff, or creative stuff, and then gradually you move into management, and then if you kind of have this job as a CEO, eventually you just do sales all the time. So you're selling to candidates, and you're selling to investors, and you're selling to customers. And I never thought it would happen like this, but I'm definitely now most of the time doing sales. And when I'm not doing that, I'm answering emails or Slack messages, but really just that. And anytime I can find some intellectually interesting task, I'm very, very excited, but it happens way too seldomly these days.
Yeah, there's working in the business and working on the business. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to, it's a balancing act. But just as a curiosity, how do you put boundaries on your time so that so that you don't like do burnout? Because, clearly you've got a lot of work and you could probably work all day, all night. There's always enough to do. But how do you personally put boundaries on your time and sort of keep the work-life balance sustainable?
Um, I guess I don't really put that many boundaries, and I have been working pretty relentlessly now for 7 years, and probably will do that for many years to come. We are hugely ambitious, and we understand that it's very unlikely to build an important company in the world without hard work. So I don't put that many boundaries. I got a son 1.5 years ago, though, so the boundaries that I do put is primarily to carve out time to spend with him, and so trying to be with him in the morning, and trying to be with him after he comes home from daycare from 4 to 7, and then he goes to bed, and then I work a little bit in the evening again. But no, can't lie, it's not super easy to be a small to be a parent of a small child and run a company at the same time. It's so boundaries and work-life balance is not really the top priority at the moment.
Yeah, kids, they'll force the boundaries for you. That's yeah, it's they're there. They're the force quit that we all need sometimes to get
Yeah,
off the
exactly,
laptops.
exactly.
Love it, love it. All right, so in terms of Superside, I read that you founded Superside to create more equal economic opportunities globally with the world's creative talent. What does that mean exactly? Why did you start Superside?
So I think there's something like 15 to 20% of the world's population that say that they would pack up tomorrow and move to another country if they were given the opportunity. Free global migration would probably double world's GDP, or at the very least be the most impactful way to increase progress and prosperity in the world. But with the current political climate, that's obviously not happening, right? On the contrary, people are, building walls and resisting granting people from other places the same opportunities that they have themselves. And we feel that that's deeply unfair, and we believe that the only solution is the internet. And we want to take part in building the global online labor market, and we're doing our part within the creative space, and we hope there will be many other exceptional companies doing it in other fields.
What are some of the problems that you're encountering when working across borders I mean, are there totally no-go places?
In terms of like countries where we don't go,
Yeah,
yeah, I
where you're
mean,
not allowed to do work, or it's just like, I don't want to name names because I don't I don't want it to get too political either.
yeah. Look, I mean, we're trying to form our own opinions on this topic, and we don't kind of necessarily share the American geopolitical agenda, right? But at the same time, we are a US company, and we're bound by kind of US sanction rules and sanction lists and stuff like that. And so we definitely try to comply with those, of course.
Right. Yeah, rules and regulations on that level are extremely important for sure. They take those things seriously, and yeah, as a company, it was
So
wise
yeah,
to
so we
follow
don't have a
that.
lot of designers in North Korea, for example. Like we don't have a
Right.
lot of designers in Iran, and so on. And while we would probably actually love to do that, because we believe kind of hiring people in repressive countries is an exceptional way for us to transmit the liberal values of the Western world to them, and have them in turn transmit those values to their local communities. We really cannot take the risk.
Indeed. So what does Superside actually do? Get us up to
Um,
speed on how it all works.
yeah, so we are a creative as a service. We primarily help enterprise technology companies, and so we work with customers like Amazon, Google, Meta, Salesforce, Twilio, and many others, many of the most well-respected technology brands in the world. And we help them with design, advertising, and increasingly also with video production. We do that with a globally distributed team of 750 people in close to 80 countries now, and we have built a ton of technology to make sure that the customer experience is hassle-free, easy to submit projects, easy to manage projects, and a lot of technology to make sure that our delivery is faster, more reliable, and higher quality than any of the kind of existing agency competition on the internet. And so really for us, the big five large international advertising agency groups like WPP, Omnicom, Publicis, these guys are kind of the companies, the established incumbents that we're trying to challenge and take market share from.
Okay, okay. And so say for instance, I'm an organization and I want to build a video series like an e-course. Is that the kind of thing that you help with, like designing the videos and all the things? Or what are some of the standard project? What does a standard project look like?
Um,
Just to get an image.
we'd love to help with an e-learning course. So if anyone has some ideas in mind, feel free to reach out. I think the most common use case for us, and really where the majority of spend in the world is within advertising in all its various forms. So it's static ads, motion ads, and various other content assets, user generated videos, and increasingly also more complicated projects within AR, VR, and whatever is kind of the latest craze in the world of content. And so for us, yeah, we really try to specialize in content production across the board. So yeah, design, concept creation, and advertising, and video.
Ah, okay, I get it. And how do you find the people that you're working with? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of part of our secret sauce, I
Mm.
guess. And I think we are now becoming one of the best companies in the world at identifying, screening, and hiring, motivating, and training creatives from all over the world. Our approach is to basically look at look openly at every single country in the world, and really try to find the very, very best people in those countries. And so, we now have a lot of people in Colombia, for example, and we're just trying to see, okay, who's the very best people here, take a look at the portfolios, and then take those folks through a pretty extensive screening process, with lots of testing and case assessments and so on. And then you join the Superside onboarding program and become part of the team.
Sounds amazing. So the other thing though that I read is that you are focused not only on building a big global organization, but you're focused on building an organization that is cultivated on kindness and truth seeking. And that really struck a nerve for me. And I'd like to just dive into that a little bit with you. And what does that actually mean? And how does it translate into reality for you?
Yeah, I mean, we're first off obsessed with values, and there are a few reasons for that. We think it's critically important that the future of internet work is dominated by companies that take their workers' rights and happiness as an important objective in and of itself. And there are multiple forces now trying to battle for market share on the internet, and the whole crypto movement, for example, is definitely kind of having some values and some ideas of the world that we don't necessarily share. Although, of course, there's exciting projects and exciting people also in that space, but we see ourselves sort of orthogonal to that in many ways. Kindness for me is really strange that isn't part of every company's value statement. A lot of companies try to have value statements that are much more towards excellence and achievement and these things, and I just don't really believe in that. I think that most people really want to do a good job. I've in my career never really encountered anyone that actually deep down didn't want to do, like, almost all the people I worked with just really want to do a good job if they're treated well, if they're treated with kindness. And so we think that's great, and it's been tremendously impactful for our company. And I think at least and I hope everyone in our company, when Sunday comes and you're going to bed, you're actually looking forward to going to work on Monday morning. You're not like turning around in bed kind of anxious about who's going to yell at you the next day at work. I think secondly, kindness is a critical requirement to enable a truth-seeking culture, because when people are afraid to speak up, or if people are afraid of repercussions if they challenge their boss or something like that, then you won't seek the truth, right? And so I find that organizations that I've been part of in the past that are much more focused on excellence and achievement, even though they say that they are truth-seeking, they really are just political organizations to a great extent. And I really think that the truth-seeking is only really possible if every voice is heard, and if kindness is paramount a value in the company.
Yeah, I heard this quote once. It's a famous quote, and I can't remember who it's from, but he said something like, "We wanted workers, but we got people." And I keep thinking about that because there's all this AI and monitoring and making sure that people are productive and that they're actually working. And I'm like, we're not robots. It just doesn't work that way. Like if I look at my own productivity over the course of the week, right? Like some days are way better than others. And it's, I've done all the right things. I did my best to sleep and eat and all that stuff, and it's just some days are better than others. And I'm just so glad nobody's monitoring me because I would, you just start to push yourself in weird ways. So when you're saying yeah, like kindness and truth seeking, I always think like, yeah, we have to treat each other like humans. Like we're
Yeah,
human, you know,
exactly.
like
Exactly. And I think especially this is true for creative, right? And design and
oh,
creative is such a deeply human and emotional pursuit. And it's not like, you know, you build an Excel model and someone tells you this is wrong or that is wrong. It's not like your whole heart and soul is
right.
embodied in that Excel model. And so, but it definitely is in design for many people. And so in that field in particular, kindness becomes extra important, I'd say.
So how does this translate then in your own organization? How are you guys, how does kindness manifest itself in your organization? What do you do to keep your people happy?
So we first and foremost select for it in our hiring process. That's the most
Mm.
important thing, and we also take very swift action if we see that people are breaking that value. It's basically the only thing you can get fired for in Superside. Obviously, like if you really underperform for a long time, but generally it's um what we what we move very quickly on is people that aren't behaving in a kind way. And so that's been, and we've been, I think, quite diligent in hiring and firing based on values. And the reason for that is it just takes years to build up kind of a quote unquote good culture, or a culture that embodies the values that you want it to embody, but it takes very short amount of time to break it down. And so you need to be constantly vigilant to protect it. And I'd say also that the second thing that we're doing is sort of like not doing so much. I think it's very tempting to have this like top down generated culture, and or like an HR led culture, but we've kind of just opened up and allowed everyone to create and contribute to the culture. And this stuff that we have now is almost as much an output from all this organic activity that is coming bottom up. People are creating groups and interacting with each other, and yeah, trying to help build the community in their own vision. So I'd say that that's the second part of what we're doing, just not judging when people take initiatives, and having a very high bar for what is allowed to say and do within the company.
Super interesting. So I like the focus on swift action. Well, one thing, a lot of people focus on hiring, but there's not a lot of focus on firing. We tend to allow people or move people around. And not that I'm a big fan of firing. I mean, I've had to do it and I hate it. Oh, it's a terrible day. Like, oh, it's a terrible day when it happens. But taking toxic people or people that don't fit into the culture off the team is equally as important as getting the right people on the team, right? You just got to get because sometimes you hire wrong. I've never spoken to somebody that, even with an extensive hiring process, that gets it right 100% of the time. It's just really hard to find
Yeah,
people that are going to fit in.
yeah, and absolutely, and it's like absolutely the worst thing in my job. The worst thing for anyone to do. It's just an extraordinarily difficult and painful thing to do. And almost all cases, it's that where we've had to let people go. It's not because they are, inherently bad people or something. It's almost always that just gotten off to like a little bit of a bad start and started to develop like some conflicts with their coworkers or their direct reports, and it's just kind of gotten into a bad place. And then almost always when we have this conversation, it's we kind of agree. It's like, okay, you probably should just find another company and give it another shot, and maybe next time it probably will go a lot better. So and it has, I think, for most people, we've just seen them succeed in other places, and that kind of it's a little bit of a consolation, right? That it's not the person, just the setup that is perhaps wrong, and it makes it slightly easier to do it, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not the right fit. I remember once, it was ages ago, I worked with this one woman in San Francisco, and we liked each other personally, but we could not work together. It was just super weird. Like we just like we even hung out, like we hung out after work, but like working together just could not do it. We did this exercise once where somebody asked, when you're working at your best, you're like what? And
Hmm.
so, and I was like, oh, I'm like a freight train, like focused and totally direct and targeted. And she was like a butterfly, like all
Oh
over the
yeah,
place. And in an instant, I understood what was happening. It just like didn't fit.
yeah,
It was never going to work. So,
yeah. Butterfly
sometimes,
getting slammed against the windshield of the
yeah, I'm
trailer
just like,
every yeah,
right. So yeah, both are needed. It just isn't the right environment for
yeah.
both. So so I can see that. I love it. So, but getting back to like the building culture and allowing people to have the freedom to express themselves, how do you build personal connection across an organization in 80 countries? How does that happen? How do you guys how do
Yeah,
you
I
do
mean,
that?
I think we can probably do better and better job on that. And I don't think there's any particular secret ingredient that we're applying there. It's the same thing as everywhere, I guess, where you have to try to establish some level of psychological safety, and then gradually over time build intimacy through shared experiences and shared trust over time. I'm not sure if there's a way to hack it or to accelerate it in some way beyond sort of genuinely trying to be interested and curious about the people that you are working with, and then over time you develop closer bonds. For me, it's at this point, and maybe I'm just like have brainwashed myself with remote work Kool-Aid, but I don't really think there is that much difference, for me at least, between an online relationship and an offline relationship at this point. Many of the people that are reporting directly to me I've never met in person, and I don't really feel that there's a difference between them and the people that I actually have met in person. So yeah, I just don't think it's an obstacle. And if you kind of think it is an obstacle, or you think it is a challenge, then probably it will become a challenge. Like if you think remote work inhibits your ability to form relationships, and therefore you invest less in relationships, then obviously, yeah, you will have fewer relationships. But if you don't think it's a problem, then I think there's lots of potential. So yeah, that's our perspective, and I think people are generally really excited about all the new online friends that they've gotten while working at Superside.
I have the same as you. I do realize that a lot of people don't have the same. Like they have a harder time forming relationships online. And I think part of the key is genuine, what you said about being genuinely interested and curious in the other people. Because I always say connection happens when we pay attention to each other, and we just need to find ways of paying attention to each other. And I can imagine like being alone in our rooms, it's hard to motivate to pay attention to other people. But if you're working on a team, that's sort of part of the job in some ways. Like we have to take some time for that. Easier said than done. I mean, I myself, as I look at my own leadership skills, like I fall short. It's like I feel like it's spinning plates. Like you're always, like there's always a plate that needs some attention. So like
No,
not everything
exactly,
goes well all the
exactly.
time all the
Yeah,
time.
no, I can
So,
I can agree with that, and definitely also can do a better job with building relationships. But yeah, always something to do.
Yeah, but in that sense, I do agree with you that there is no difference with for me for online or offline. At the end of the day, after I've had a day where I'm talking from people all over the world, I feel like I've been social and with people all day, as if I were out at the bar with my friends. It's sort of this. I just didn't have the commute. It's sort of the same feeling. And then I turn off all the lights and I close my office door, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I'm back in the 3D world or something. It's
Yeah,
like, it's just like a different world somehow. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, but I digress. All right, so we're gonna run out of time very slowly, or very shortly. So I want to just dive into a couple more things. One is time zones. You're working in 80 countries. How do you guys deal with time zones? And I mean, do you have a special asynchronous way of working, or you've organized yourself in a certain way?
We don't have an ultra strong point of view in any kind of extreme direction. We probably are slightly leaning towards async, but there's definitely, still many meetings, maybe too many meetings, but we still believe that meetings are, occasionally useful, right? So we take this like little bit of a middle ground approach. Time zones definitely makes it difficult. We try to organize teams a little bit around the same time zone. So a tech product team will generally be in the same or similar time zone, and so and the marketing team is generally placed in the same time zone. And so the people that need to work together very frequently, they can easily schedule calls with each other. For me personally, kind of dealing with multiple teams, I typically always end up doing calls in the evening with like people in North America, which isn't great to do that every day, obviously, but it's part of the job, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, when we can be closer together in time zone wise, it is easier, but yeah, if you have to be when you're running a global company, if you're if you're the CEO and founder, then there are some sacrifices in that case that are not ideal. But what I think is so cool is that it's possible that with a push of a button, like you're connected with San Francisco. It's just totally amazing. I still and my mind is still blown by that simple fact. Why did you go remote? Why is this remote space so appealing to you personally?
Definitely because of the freedom, and that's always been important to me. I've always been among those people that kind of was skeptical of authorities and skeptical, like inherently skeptical of bosses and skeptical about teachers monitoring me and just wanting to be left alone to my own devices to do my own stuff. And um, very few organizations, or none of the organizations that I've ever been part of, especially not the Norwegian military, which I was drafted into at age 19. None of these organizations shared this idea that freedom was an important aspect of that increases performance. You have some kind of schools for kids that embrace this idea. The traditional Steiner or Montessori schools are like to some extent embracing this, but very few companies are embracing this idea of freedom. And so for me, the remote work just means that there's nobody looking over your shoulder, checking out what you're doing. It means that what you actually achieve, the results that you actually deliver, irrespective of the method that you choose, is what you are judged by. And I just find that really liberating, and I couldn't imagine going back to an office at this point, at least not an office in the same sense of like monitoring who is working the most and rewarding people based on who is working the most.
Yeah, rewarding people by how long they've been at the office. I saw on your LinkedIn profile that you worked as a journalist for a number of years. What kind of journalism did you do? And were you out in the field a lot? I always think of journalists as like out in the field collecting stories, but that might just be a
Yeah,
television
actually,
vision.
that's the one job where I actually felt a great degree of freedom. So I forgot about that, and I was just sort of a part-time journalist during my student days in a local newspaper, but still the most exciting job that I've ever had, and a really great company with lots of talented older journalists that taught me all kinds of stuff, and yeah, really a fantastic job, and I have a huge amount of respect for journalists and writers more generally. I guess I kind of came to the realization that I was, a decent journalist, like decent at digging up information and so on, but probably didn't have sufficiently like colorful or interesting language to kind of become a writer. But kind of learned enough about it to just develop a huge amount of respect. It really is very, very challenging, and the whole journalism pursuit is very much a lifestyle thing. It's like you're an artist or you're an actor or you're an academic. It's journalist is a full-time, always on kind of thing. You become one with that job, and so yeah, but super exciting. You travel around and meet lots of people, see lots of strange things that you would never see if you were just a normal guy. It's super varied. You get out a lot, and so definitely miss that for sure.
I can imagine. And it seems like it's the original, like some of the original remote workers were journalists out in the field, right? You have to call your stories back in and you have to, you're reporting from remote locations to a central location that's
Yeah,
again
no, that's
broadcasting it
true.
out, right? So,
That's true.
so
That's very true. I hadn't thought of that, but I guess they were the first remote workers, indeed.
how were you communicating back to headquarters back in the day? I mean, cell phones, 2005, that's before the iPhone. People had phones in their pocket. Did you have one of those big chunky phones in your car that like connected to the lighter or something?
Yeah, no,
I'm
I mean
dating myself.
no, at this point it was this like classic thing where you're out all day and then you take lots of notes and take lots of pictures, and then you go into the office at night and then you try to like cram out the story before deadline, and it goes to the actual printing press, and so the deadline is a very much a hard a deadline, and that is I love that aspect. I probably love the most about the job, when it's like getting close to the deadline, and you just really have to type up a full page in 30 minutes, and it just that pressure just is really exciting, and makes
Sure
you
gives some
perform.
focus, right? You're
For
like,
sure. I mean,
whoo.
you have this whole like Parkinson's law thing around the complexity of the task expands through the time allocated or something like that. And it's just looking back, it's just unbelievable how quickly. And I see journalists today. I mean, it's a challenging. Like some of these folks are churning out like 3-4 stories a day, right? And it's apparently like the need for content is just ever increasing, and yeah, just super impressive to see how people are able to move so quickly under pressure.
I can believe that. I can believe that. Yeah, that's definitely not a job for me. I'm not good in stress and I'm a very slow writer, so totally not good. All right, so coming up on the last very part of the time though is if there's one piece of advice that you have for people starting out on their remote journey, if you think back to how you started out, what would that advice be?
I guess try to take advantage of the freedom that you have. You are supposed to go to the gym in the middle of the day when there are no people there, or fly to a cool place on the cheap Tuesday at noon flight, instead of following the cycles of Friday to Sunday, and especially before you have kids, like properly take advantage of the ability to travel around. I wish I had done that more. I think many people are really kind of feeling this like old school guilt, this sense of guilt when you're working from home, and you're just trying to replicate what you did in the traditional office setting, which was just work straight for 10 hours. But that's just not how you're supposed to work, right? I think you're supposed to work for a few hours, and then when you're tired, you just take a little break. And when you're at home, you can just do the dishes, or do some laundry, or make yourself some lunch. And so it's super efficient, and I really love that. Or if you're really tired, you just lie down, and that freedom is nothing to feel I guess guilty about. And yeah, just be kind of much more aware of how you manage your own energy. I guess is the most important thing that I've learned.
I love that. It's great advice. Absolutely great advice. Yeah. Take advantage of the freedom that this way of working has to offer. I love the middle of my days. I'm always going for a run or a walk or a bike ride or just something to get out, because I've been staring at the screen so long. And then, you just need to get away from that. So I never skip my midday, whatever it is that I do,
No,
whatever
exactly. The
activity
midday
in the
is the
day.
best part of the day, right? And so it's so sad that we're always stuck in the office at that point. And I'd much rather work for a couple of hours in the evening, when it's, at least here in Norway, pitch black dark, and nothing really
Yeah. Winter
to do.
season is beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah,
Winter is
indeed.
coming.
Yeah, indeed. All right, last question, which is, if people want to learn more about you or Superside, what's the best place to get in touch with you? I'll of course provide the links in the show notes, but like just for people to know, what's the best place to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, people can just email me at fredrik@superside.com, or send me a message on Twitter is probably the easiest way. I message with a few people there. LinkedIn, I just don't really, it's become this like, I just get like 50 inbound sales requests every day, so I don't usually respond to stuff
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. But email and Twitter is easy. And obviously, you can go to superside.com and check out our website, and book a call with our wonderful sales team if you're interested in trying out our service and seeing how it works. And I'm obviously super happy to chat with any prospective customers myself, if they're interested in learning more.
Awesome. And it is a beautiful website, I must say. I would expect nothing less from a group of advertising
Yeah, no,
designers, right?
we're very proud. I absolutely love it. I have to admit, I think it's really, really well done, both technically and creatively. So we're proud of that for sure.
Yeah, it definitely should be. Well done. Your Twitter handle.
F Thomassen.
Easy enough.
Yeah,
All right, I'll put it in the show notes for people. But
yeah,
I love
do it.
Twitter too. So
Yeah. Pros and cons, I guess, with Twitter, but it's
completely
easy to find people at least.
Indeed. All right. Well, Fredrik, thank you so much for your valuable insight today. I took copious notes here, as you can see. So I look forward to bringing this out into the world, and I'll put the show notes together for our audience. Thank you again for being here.
Yeah, so great to be here. Thanks a lot for having me on, and good luck with the show.
Thanks. All right. Until next time, everybody, be powerful.